Hi, this is Mary Popoka, and I will be talking about immigration and why it's a social problem. So, causes of negative immigration views. So, throughout history, we have immigration policies and alike groups that have influenced how immigrants are perceived. So, the article, The Criminalization of Immigrants, um, enhances immigration policies, and it actually studies how those policies are being shaped and are being shaped for citizens to fear and stereotype immigrants. So these policies are actually not done through empirical evidence. The next bullet point was from the article, Can a Light Shape Public Attitudes Toward Immigrants? And research have shown that rhetoric language of light groups can influence how immigrants are viewed. So Flores actually conducted a study, and in the study, it was before Trump's election speech that he was already observing his rhetoric language, and during his election, it's when Donald Trump emphasized that Mexico wasn't sending their best, that they're sending criminals. And so research has shown that the rhetoric language of ally groups can also influence how immigrants are viewed. So, and then the next one was done through the article Warmth of the Welcome, Attitudes Toward Immigrants and Immigration Policies in the United States. So this article wraps up both of these last points, and it shows how stigma and perceived threat can influence public perception of immigrants. So that perceived threat and stigma can include like, oh, immigrants are taking our welfare benefits, and individuals start to fear immigrants or Blacks too of taking those benefits from them, and that's why this negative view starts to develop. And we can see right here, this picture right here states, this park was given for white people only, Mexicans and Blacks stay out, order of a park board. So you can start saying that a higher board is already discriminating against Mexicans and Blacks. And so just the way this poster was brought out can really influence how others in society view immigrants. And so impacts of immigrants. So immigrants are labeled as criminals and face criminalization in the US. And so through this article, Ewing and his colleagues actually study how immigrants are not the cause of criminalization. They were able to see that when there's larger waves of immigration, crime was actually going down. And so in realities, these labels make it harder for immigrants to adapt to their lives in the United States. So this following article on the bottom actually states 8 big challenges immigrants face, which those include language barriers, lack of employment opportunity, housing, access to medical services, transportation issues, culture differences, raising children, and prejudice. So in this article, we see, not article, sorry. This poster, it states, we serve whites only, no Spanish or Mexicans. So the fact that this poster states only whites, it starts to create a barrier between Spanish and Mexican. It starts to divide, and it starts to divide and just create the challenge between these resources. So policy analysis. So in 1986, Ronald Reagan, as you can see in these pictures, he actually signed the Immigration Reform Act, which reinforced security at the Mexican border and stated that those who hired undocumented immigrants will get punished. So he at the same time, he reinforced it and was saying, okay, if you're hiring an undocumented immigrant, you're gonna get punished. You're gonna pay a fine, serve jail time. And so this started to create a stereotype that immigrants were bad, and in doing that, you were gonna get punished. And then so this actually, what was really interesting, that this policy actually granted lots of immigrants amnesty before 1982. So amnesty is a political pardon given to an individual for their wrongdoing. So in this case, this act was forgiving immigrants for crossing illegally, which is a criminal offense. And so this act at the same time started to reinforce security, but was forgiving those who had entered before January 1st, 1982. And so Build Back Better is a new campaign proposed by Biden, and it's for undocumented immigrants who have been in the U.S. for numerous of years. And if it is effective, it can help 8 to 10 million undocumented immigrants, and it'll allow them to reside legally in the United States. So I provided those resources right in the bottom. So reasons for concern. Tron states that the Senate ruled 3 times against including immigration protections for undocumented immigrants, creating an uncertain future for millions of undocumented immigration families waiting on reforms. So this ruling was denied 3 times. So it starts to create uncertain futures for immigrants. If this continues to happen, immigrants start to feel concerned because they're like, we've worked so hard, we raised our children here, and they still fear getting deported. So they don't see a future here, even though that's what they wanted. That's the reason for their American dream. So Tron 2022 enhances other studies, and these studies show that immigration threats and enforcement on immigration can negatively affect the development of children. So not only is it affecting the parents, if not the first generation children. For example, I'm a first generation child. So like just fearing, like I fear for my parents is stay here in the United States. So this comes to show how other children are also fearing that and are traumatized that one day their parents won't be here. Immigrants strengthen our economy because they contribute to tax investments. So there's a really strong stereotype and stigma that immigrants don't pay taxes. So that's one of the other reasons why lots of people don't like immigrants. But Tron states that undocumented immigrants and their whole households pay $79.7 billion in federal taxes and $41 billion in state and local tax annually. So these are very big numbers. So we can see how much immigrants are actually contributing to the economy. So if immigrants are not protected and granted a pathway to citizenship in the future, this can really show how our economy is going to face a vicissitude of probably a recession. We'll probably see a large decrease in our economy. So a proposal for better solutions. So the Article 12 new immigration ideas for the 21st century writes about possible solutions for better immigration rights. So the first solution, one of the first solutions they proposed was immigration designed to enhance American lives, which is known as IDEAL. It suggests that in order for an immigrant to live in the United States, he or she must pay a fee of $2,500 annually to the federal government. And so other restrictions will apply to this, not just paying. For example, they must apply each year for IDEAL. They cannot have a criminal record. IDEAL workers cannot vote, etc. So this actually sounds very similar to what we have now, DACA, the Dreamers Act. And so I believe the only thing that's different is the annual pay. It looks like they're trying to increase paying more fines to the federal government and it's probably a good solution to help the economy as well, right? So after 20 years, after 20 years, and if you have a total of $50,000 paid to the federal government, individuals can start applying to citizenship. So this was a proposal, but this proposal also gave a possible solution. If it's not 20 years, it could be 10 years and a fine of $25,000 to the federal government by the time that they can apply for legal citizenship. So this IDEAL program is aiming to protect immigrants, and at the same time, later on their future, it's given them hope to have legal residency. So now I talked a little bit about macro level research. Now I'm going to narrow it down to micros. So our advocates here in Idaho, we have PODER. So PODER stands for Protecting Our Dreams and Empowering Resilience. So their director is Estefania, and she's really great. If you're ever looking into learning more about it. So what her campaign, what advocates, is for immigrants. So this group seeks for many undocumented immigrants by empowering policy changes. So our recent campaign was Sin Miedo, Without Fear. And it's one of the recent campaigns that has been aiming to change a policy here in Idaho. That policy is to grant a valid driver's license. So it was their goal for the Idaho Senate to pass SB 1081 to grant and support immigrants in our community. And by giving them a driver's license, they feel more safer. So for over 20 years, actions that can be taken. So for over 20 years, undocumented immigrants in Idaho run the risk of being deported. If an undocumented individual gets pulled over in a traffic stop, they risk getting a ticket, and this small infraction can lead to deportation. We can help this social problem by voting and supporting undocumented immigrants. Understanding that not all undocumented immigrants are criminals, this will help reduce the stigma that there is in society. Learning how to appropriately use words goes a long way. So don't say illegals, say undocumented immigrants or first-generation immigrants. So unfortunately, PODER did all they could. Our community did all we could to help support this driver license, SB 10, I believe it was 1081. But the Senate closed it down. They said, we're going to put pause to it. We fear for something, and we can't pass this. So how PODER states, for the first time in 20 years, driver license for all has been moved to the Senate floor. This win is for every undocumented person and family in Idaho. Thank you to those who came before us, and let's continue for our descendants. So unfortunately, how I said, we couldn't get undocumented, and we couldn't get immigrants, especially undocumented immigrants, their driver's license, and this just continues to grow fear of getting stopped by an officer while one of our parents is going to work. Unfortunately, I think, well, hopefully, I mean, fortunately, we can continue fighting, but luckily we were able to move it compared to in 20 years. So our goal is to continue fighting for this change. Data and research evidence. So I got this. Latinos say U.S. immigrant systems needs major fixing. And this last statistic, I just wanted to point out that this study was conducted across different age and groups and educational levels. There's not a large difference between alike groups and how they think. So, for example, Democrats and Republicans all across which requires no change or only major changes, requires major changes, needs to completely rebuild. So this is about immigration system. What I found interesting was that Democrats and Republicans had very similar views. And even Biden proposed legislation that makes the border more secure but helps more immigrants to come legally to the United States. So probably in the near future, we might see this change because of new proposals that are coming. However, policies throughout years have not changed to aim on this social problem, but slowly and surely changes will be done because, as we can see, lots of people, which include Hispanics, US borns, foreign borns, even if it's Democrats or Republicans, they start to see that this is a social problem, and little by little, our society will start to make some changes. And these are my resources. Thank you.